The vast darkness of space was pierced by the glow of 6 Imperial patrol ships, their sleek hulls reflecting the distant starlight as they moved in perfect formation. Each vessel bore the symbol of the Galactic Empire, a spiral of stars wrapped around a golden spear. For centuries, the Empire had ruled thousands of worlds with an iron grip disguised as benevolent guidance. Commander Drell stood on the bridge of the lead patrol ship, hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the holographic map of Sector 7. This region bordered the outer reaches of Imperial space, a quiet zone that rarely saw activity beyond the occasional merchant vessel. "Sir, sensors are picking up an unknown ship," reported a young officer, his blue skin tensing as he studied the readout. "It's not matching any Imperial signature." Drell frowned. "Show me." The hologram shifted to display a vessel unlike any in the Imperial fleet. It was darker, more angular, with visible weapon ports along its hull. Most Imperial ships hid their weapons behind elegant curves. This ship made no attempt to disguise its nature. "What is it?" Drell asked. The officer's fingers danced across the control panel. "Computer identifies it as human design, sir. Warship class." A cold silence fell over the bridge. Humans were known to the Empire, of course, a species from a small blue planet in a backwater system. The Empire had surveyed Earth decades ago and classified humans as primitive, barely achieving spaceflight. They weren't considered a threat or worthy of formal contact. So why was a human warship here, at the edge of Imperial space? "Open communication channels," ordered Drell. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a man in a dark blue uniform. He had short brown hair, a strong jaw, and eyes that reflected a calm determination Drell found immediately unsettling. "This is Captain James Miller of the Earth Federation vessel Dauntless," the human said, his voice steady. "Identify yourselves." Drell straightened. "I am Commander Drell of the Galactic Empire's 7th Fleet. You have entered restricted Imperial space. State your purpose or withdraw immediately." Captain Miller's expression didn't change. "We're investigating the disappearance of 3 research vessels in this sector. Last transmissions placed them near these coordinates." "There have been no human vessels in this sector," Drell replied automatically. "Your information is incorrect." Miller's eyes narrowed slightly. He reached over to press something off screen, and suddenly the display split to show sensor readings and video logs. "These are the final transmissions from our research ships," Miller explained. "They clearly show Imperial vessels approaching before communications were cut. We have the right to investigate what happened to our people." Drell felt a chill run through him. This wasn't possible. Humans shouldn't have this kind of technology, not the ships themselves, nor the ability to track and record Imperial vessels with such clarity. "Admiral Gray must be informed," whispered his second-in-command. Drell nodded stiffly. "Human vessel, remain in position. Any movement will be considered hostile action." He cut the transmission and immediately opened a secure channel to Imperial command. Within minutes, the imposing figure of Admiral Gray filled the screen. His silver uniform gleamed with metals, and his pale eyes seemed to look through Drell rather than at him. "Report," Gray demanded. "Admiral, we've encountered a human warship in Sector 7. They claim to be searching for missing research vessels." Drell swallowed hard. "They have evidence suggesting Imperial involvement in the disappearances." Gray's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped dangerously. "What kind of evidence?" "Visual recordings of Imperial ships approaching their vessels before they went dark." Drell hesitated. "Sir, their technology, it's far more advanced than our reports indicated." A long silence followed. Finally, Gray spoke. "I'm dispatching 3 battle cruisers to your position. Surround the human vessel, but take no action until I arrive. Keep them talking." The transmission ended, and Drell turned back to the viewport where the Dauntless hung against the star field. Even with his limited knowledge of human vessels, he could tell this was no ordinary ship. The hull showed signs of advanced alloys, and the energy readings were unlike anything in Imperial databases. When communications reopened with the human ship, Captain Miller's face showed he had expected this delay. "Your reinforcements are on the way, Commander?" Miller asked casually. Drell felt unnerved. How had they detected the incoming ships already? "I don't know what you mean." Miller smiled slightly. "We've detected 3 large vessels moving toward this position at high speed. Your empire isn't known for subtlety." "The Admiral wishes to discuss this situation personally," Drell replied, stiffly. Hours passed in tense silence. The human ship made no aggressive moves, simply maintaining position as 3 massive Imperial battlecruisers arrived, their hulls dwarfing both the patrol ships and the Dauntless. Admiral Gray's personal shuttle docked with Drell's vessel, and soon the Admiral strode onto the bridge, his cold gaze fixed on the human ship displayed on the main screen. "Open communications," he ordered. Captain Miller appeared once more, his calm demeanor unchanged despite now facing overwhelming firepower. "I am Admiral Gray of the Galactic Empire. Your presence here violates multiple Imperial edicts. Earth has no authority in this sector." Miller's response was measured. "Admiral, we respect your borders under normal circumstances, but when our ships and citizens go missing, we have a duty to investigate. Any missing vessels are the result of your own navigational errors," Gray said dismissively. "This sector contains hazardous space phenomena that primitive ships might not detect." For the first time, Miller's expression hardened. "Primitive? Perhaps you should check your scans more carefully, Admiral." Gray motioned to his science officer, who conducted a deep scan of the Dauntless. As the results came in, the officer's eyes widened. "Sir," he whispered, "their shield technology. It's nothing like our report suggested, and there are energy signatures we can't identify." A flash of uncertainty crossed Gray's face before he controlled it. "Captain Miller, I'm transmitting coordinates. Remove your vessel to that position immediately, or we will be forced to fire upon you." Miller leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, we have evidence your ships attacked our research vessels. We're not leaving until we know what happened to our people." Gray's patience ended. "This is your final warning. Withdraw, or be destroyed." "We cannot do that, Admiral." Gray turned to his weapons officer. "Target their engines, fire." A brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the lead battlecruiser, striking the Dauntless directly. The Imperial bridge crew watched, expecting to see the human ship crippled or destroyed. Instead, the energy seemed to ripple across an invisible barrier before dissipating completely. "No damage detected," reported the stunned science officer. "Their shields absorbed the entire impact." Miller's face reappeared on screen, still unnervingly calm. "Admiral Gray, we came here seeking answers, not conflict. That was a warning shot from your side. Here's ours." Before anyone could react, a small projectile launched from the Dauntless. It detonated between the Imperial ships, releasing a pulse that washed over the vessels. Suddenly, every system on the Imperial ships flickered and reset. "What just happened?" demanded Gray as emergency lights bathed the bridge in red. "Some kind of electromagnetic pulse, sir, but focused somehow to only affect our systems temporarily," the science officer reported. "They could have disabled us completely, but they chose not to." On the screen, Miller's expression remained firm but not threatening. "Now that I have your attention, Admiral, perhaps we can discuss the matter of our missing ships more productively. The next demonstration won't be so gentle." As the Imperial crew scrambled to restore their systems, Admiral Gray stared at the human captain with new eyes filled with something the Empire hadn't felt in centuries: fear. The Stellar Council would need to be informed immediately. Humans weren't the primitives they had believed, and somewhere in the back of his mind, Admiral Gray recalled an ancient warning about Earth that had been dismissed as myth. "Leave them, alone in their cradle, for if they awaken too soon, the stars themselves will tremble." He was beginning to think it wasn't a myth after all. News of the human warship spread through the Empire's communication networks like wildfire. Within hours, an emergency meeting of the Stellar Council was called. The Grand Chamber, with its high ceiling and walls of polished black stone, filled quickly with representatives from the Empire's most powerful worlds. High Counselor Vex, the oldest member of the council, stood at the center platform. His thin frame seemed to bend under invisible weight as the holographic display showed the human vessel, the Dauntless, surrounded by now 8 Imperial ships. "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Wren, her voice echoing in the chamber. Humans were classified as a Level 2 civilization, barely capable of reaching their own moon. Vex raised a hand for silence. "Our last official survey of Earth was conducted over 70 years ago. It appears we underestimated their rate of progress, or we were deliberately misled," suggested another counselor. The room fell silent as the main doors opened. A tall, slender man with dark skin and sharp eyes entered carrying a data pad. This was Marcus, Chief of Imperial Intelligence. Humans have been hiding their true capabilities," Marcus stated flatly. "Our recent scans of their vessels show technology that rivals or exceeds our own in several key areas." He tapped his pad, and the hologram shifted to display detailed scans of the Dauntless. "Their shield technology operates on principles our scientists don't fully understand. Their weapons systems are equally advanced. Most concerning is their propulsion system. It leaves almost no energy signature, making it nearly impossible to track." High Counselor Vex's fingers trembled slightly. "What do they want?" "They claim to be searching for missing research vessels," Marcus replied. "Our records show 3 unknown ships were indeed destroyed in that sector last month by Commander Zed's patrol fleet. They were classified as smugglers and eliminated without communication." "A mistake," whispered Vex. "A mistake that could lead to war," said Marcus. "Admiral Gray reports that the human captain, this Miller, has evidence of our involvement. He's demanding answers and suggests there will be consequences if not provided." Counselor Wren stood abruptly. "This is absurd. We are the Galactic Empire. We do not bow to threats from a single ship from a backwater world." Marcus looked at her coolly. "A single ship that withstood a direct hit from a Class 4 energy cannon without showing any damage. A single ship that temporarily disabled 3 of our battlecruisers with technology we cannot counter." The room erupted in angry voices and fearful whispers. Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial flagship, Admiral Gray paced the bridge. The standoff had lasted nearly 12 hours and the human ship remained motionless, its dark hull reflecting starlight as 6 more Imperial vessels joined the blockade. "Report from intelligence, sir," said his aide, extending a datapad. Gray scanned the information, his expression darkening. "Is this verified?" "Yes, sir. We've been ordered to neutralize the human vessel by any means necessary." Gray handed back the pad. "Prepare all ships for coordinated attack. Full power to forward. Batteries." Back on the Dauntless, Captain Miller stood at the viewport, watching the Imperial ships adjust their positions. Beside him, Lieutenant Ben Watson, his tactical officer, monitored the sensor readings. "They're charging weapons, sir," Watson reported. "All ships. This won't be a warning shot." Miller nodded calmly. "They've made their decision then." He turned to the communications officer. "Record everything. Make sure our transmission breaks through any attempt to block it." He walked to the captain's chair and pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All hands, battle stations. Defensive protocol echo." Throughout the ship, crew members moved with practiced efficiency. Unlike the rigid ceremonial procedures of the Imperial forces, the humans moved with a casual competence born of genuine experience. "Sir," called the sensor officer, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Imperial flagship. They're bringing something new online." Miller's eyes narrowed. "Magnify." The main screen showed the Imperial flagship's hull opening to reveal a massive cannon, far larger than any visible weapon on the other ships. "Planet killer class weapon," Watson said quietly. "They're not taking chances." Miller's face remained calm, but his voice carried steel when he spoke. "Activate the Aegis system. Prepare return fire, targeting weapons only." On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Gray gave the order. "Fire." A blinding beam of concentrated energy erupted from the massive cannon, joined by simultaneous fire from all 14 Imperial vessels. The combined firepower was enough to shatter a small moon. The energy struck the Dauntless dead center and spread across its hull like water over glass, rippling in patterns of blue and gold before dissipating completely. "Impossible," breathed Gray. Before he could issue another command, the Dauntless responded. Precise beams of energy lanced out from the human ship, striking each Imperial vessel's weapon systems with surgical accuracy. Explosions bloomed across the Imperial fleet as weapon arrays overloaded and failed. "Report!" shouted Gray as his bridge rocked from the impact. "All weapons offline," came the panicked response. "They've somehow targeted only our weapon systems. Life support and engines remain functional." Gray stared at the view screen in disbelief. The human ship had deliberately avoided causing casualties. On the Dauntless, Miller opened a channel to the Imperial fleet. "Admiral Gray, you've now seen what one human warship can do against your entire fleet. We did not destroy your ships or harm your crews when we could have. Remember that." In the Imperial capital, Marcus rushed into the council chamber, interrupting the heated debate. "The human ship has neutralized our entire attack force," he announced. 14 ships, including Admiral Gray's flagship, have been rendered weaponless without a single casualty. The council chamber erupted in chaos. "How?" demanded Vex. "How could they?" "I've been researching human history," Marcus said, activating a holographic display. "What we're seeing isn't just advanced technology. It's the result of something more fundamental." The display showed scenes from Earth's history, wars, battles, and conflicts spanning centuries. Humans evolved as persistence predators, Marcus E. explained. Their entire history is marked by warfare and innovation born of conflict. While the Empire has enjoyed peace for centuries, humans have been constantly fighting, either against nature or each other. Their technology isn't just advanced, it's battle-tested in ways ours isn't. He switched the display to show an ancient, Imperial text. "And there's something else. I found this in the sealed archives, an Imperial decree from over 500 years ago, ordering all contact with Earth to cease." Vex's face paled. "The quarantine directive. I thought it was a myth." "It's real," said Marcus, "and it specifies that humans were to be isolated, not because they were primitive, but because they were dangerous." Counselor Wren scoffed. "One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot threaten the Empire." Marcus looked at her grimly. "This isn't their only ship. Our long-range sensors have detected energy signatures consistent with the Dauntless appearing at the edges of our territory. Not one ship. Dozens." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And we have no idea how many more they have, or what else they're capable of." As the council members sat in stunned silence, Marcus added the final blow. "There's one more thing you should know. We've intercepted communications between the Dauntless and Earth. They're not just looking for their missing ships anymore." "What do they want?" asked Vex, his voice barely audible. Marcus's expression was grim. "Answers. About why we've been hiding the truth from them for centuries. About who they really are." Outside the window of the council chamber, the first stars of evening began to appear in the darkening sky, stars that suddenly seemed much less secure under the Empire's control. Captain Miller sat alone in his quarters aboard the Dauntless, studying the data they had gathered from the Imperial ships. The confrontation had ended in a stalemate, the Imperial fleet powerless but still surrounding them, unwilling to retreat or engage further. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Enter," Miller called. Lieutenant Anna Reed stepped inside, her red hair pulled back tightly, dark circles under her eyes showing the strain of the past 24 hours. As second in command and head of intelligence, she had been working nonstop since they disabled the Imperial fleet. "Captain, I've found something," she said, placing a datapad on his desk. "We managed to access some of their secure databases during the weapons exchange." Miller raised an eyebrow. Weapons exchange was a polite way to describe how they had neutralized 14 Imperial warships. "What did you find?" Reed's eyes gleamed with excitement. "The truth, sir. About Earth. About why we were cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Miller scrolled through the information, his expression growing more serious with each passing moment. Is this verified? Triple-checked, sir. It's authentic Imperial historical data, classified at the highest level. Miller stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the stars and the Imperial ships still positioned around them. So we weren't always primitive. We were feared. According to these records, humans were part of an earlier galactic civilization, Reed explained. We weren't just part of it, we were its defenders. The records call us the Shield of Dawn. Miller turned back to her. Why would they erase our history? Cut us off from everything? Reed tapped the pad, bringing up more information. There was a war, a big one. The records are fragmented, but they mention something called the Sundering. Afterward, a decision was made by the early Empire to isolate Earth, erase our memories of space travel, and keep us contained. For 500 years, Miller said quietly. But that's not all, Reed continued. I found references to something called Project Harvest. It looks like the Empire has been secretly entering our space for decades, mining resources from the outer reaches of our solar system and nearby stars we haven't explored yet. Miller's jaw tightened. Those weren't just research vessels they destroyed. No, sir. They were survey ships that stumbled onto Imperial mining operations. Operations that have been causing environmental damage to some of our outer colonies through resource depletion and waste dumping. A cold anger settled in Miller's eyes. They've been stealing from us while keeping us ignorant of our own history, the ship's communication system chimed. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Gray. He's requesting to come aboard to negotiate. Miller and Reed exchanged glances. Tell him he may bring one aid. No weapons, Miller ordered. An hour later, Admiral Gray stood stiffly in the Dauntless's conference room, his silver uniform contrasting sharply with the darker, more functional uniforms of the human crew. Beside him stood a younger officer who introduced himself as Lieutenant Tarn. Captain Miller, Gray began formally. The Stellar Council has authorized me to offer terms for your withdrawal from Imperial space. Miller smiled thinly. We both know you're not in a position to offer terms, Admiral. Your ships are weaponless, and reinforcements would take days to arrive. By then our fleet would be here. Gray's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. You don't have a fleet. Lieutenant Reed tapped a control, and the view screen showed long-range sensor readings of multiple vessels approaching from various directions. The Earth Defense Force was mobilized the moment we confirmed Imperial involvement in the destruction of our ships, Miller explained. They'll be here within 20 hours. Gray's face paled slightly, but he maintained his composure. What do you want? The truth, Miller said simply, and compensation for the resources you've been stealing from our territory. Gray's expression revealed nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Reed placed her datapad on the table and slid it toward Gray. Project Harvest, the illegal mining operations, the ecological damage to our outer colonies. We have it all. For a moment, genuine surprise flashed across Gray's face as he reviewed the information, then his expression hardened. These operations weren't authorized by the full council. They were conducted by certain factions. Miller leaned forward. And what about our history? The Shield of Dawn? The Sundering? Was that authorized by the full council too? For the first time, Gray looked truly uncomfortable. Behind him, Lieutenant Tarn shifted nervously. Those events occurred 5 centuries ago. Gray said carefully. Few remember the details now. But you do, Miller pressed. Or at least you know more than you're saying. Gray straightened. Captain Miller, I am not authorized to discuss these matters. I've been instructed to inform you that if you don't withdraw your vessel immediately, the Empire will consider it an act of war. Miller laughed, the sound holding no humor. Admiral, your Empire started this war 500 years ago, when you erased our history and imprisoned us on our own world. You continued it when you destroyed our ships and stole our resources. We're just finally fighting back. Before Gray could respond, the ship rocked violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the vessel. "Report!" Miller shouted into his communicator. "Sir, we're under attack." A new Imperial vessel just dropped out of hyperspace and opened fire without warning. Miller turned to Gray, fury in his eyes. "Is this your idea of negotiation, Admiral?" Gray looked genuinely confused. "I gave no such order. My fleet is still weaponless." The ship's tactical officer's voice came through the speakers. "Captain, it's not one of the ships from the blockade. This is a different class entirely. Black hull, no Imperial markings. They're targeting our engines." Reed's fingers flew across her datapad. "Sir, according to these records, it matches the description of vessels operated by something called the Imperial Shadow Division, a secret branch not officially acknowledged by the Council." Gray's face showed real alarm now. "Captain Miller, I swear to you I did not know about this attack. The Shadow Division answers directly to the High Council, not military command." Another blast rocked the ship. Miller grabbed his communicator. "Battle stations, return fire, aim to disable." He glared at Gray. "If you're telling the truth, Admiral, then your empire is even more corrupt than we thought. The Council sent you to keep us talking while their assassins moved into position." Gray's expression hardened. "If what you say is true, then I've been used as well, Captain. The Shadow Division operates outside normal channels. Few know of their existence, even among high command." Lieutenant Tarn suddenly spoke up. "He's right. The Council is corrupt. They've been manipulating species across the galaxy for centuries." Gray turned to his aide in shock. "Lieutenant," Tarn stood straighter. "I'm sorry, Admiral, but Captain Miller needs to know. The Shadow Division doesn't just handle black operations. They're the enforcers for the Council's personal agenda. If they're here, it means the Council wants the Dauntless destroyed regardless of the consequences." Miller studied Tarn carefully. "Why are you telling us this?" Tarn looked directly at Miller. "Because I've seen the same records you have now. About the Shield of Dawn. About what humans once were to the galaxy. The truth has been buried for too long." Another blast shook the ship more violently than before. "Engine 2 is damaged," came the report from engineering. "Shield capacity at 70%. Miller made a swift decision. "Admiral Gray, Lieutenant Tarn, you'll remain aboard as our guests until this situation is resolved. Lieutenant Reed, get to the bridge and coordinate our response." As Reed hurried out, Miller turned back to Gray. "It seems, Admiral, that we both have enemies in the Stellar Council. The question now is what we're going to do about it." Gray looked at the human captain with new respect and something else, the first glimmer of understanding. "Perhaps, Captain Miller, it's time for the Empire to remember why humans were so feared in the first place." Outside, the stars blurred as the Dauntless engaged its advanced engines, breaking through the Imperial blockade with a burst of speed that left the weaponless ships unable to follow. Behind them, the Shadow Division vessel pursued, determined to keep the humans from spreading what they had learned. The race to expose the truth had begun. The Dauntless shot through space like a dark arrow, its advanced engines pushing far beyond what the Empire had believed possible for human technology. Behind them, the Shadow Division vessel followed, its black hull seeming to absorb rather than reflect the light of nearby stars. On the bridge, Captain Miller studied the tactical display. "Status of the pursuit?" "Still following, sir," Lieutenant Watson reported from the tactical station. "They're faster than the standard Imperial ships, but we're maintaining our lead. Our Engine 2 is operating at reduced power after the hit we took." Miller nodded and turned to Lieutenant Reed. "What's our next move?" Reed had been working non-stop, compiling the intelligence they'd gathered from the Imperial databases. "We need proof, sir. Hard evidence of Project Harvest and the Imperial operations in our space. According to these records, there are 3 major mining operations in systems near our borders. Can we reach them before the Shadow Division catches up?" Miller asked. "The closest is in the Proxima system. Just 6 hours at our current speed," Reed replied. Miller made his decision. "Set course for Proxima, and prepare a data packet for transmission to Earth. They need to know what we've found." In the ship's secure conference room, Admiral Gray and Lieutenant Tarn remained under guard. Gray paced the small space while Tarn sat quietly watching him. You've betrayed the Empire, Gray finally said, his voice low. Tarn met his gaze steadily. No, Admiral. The Council betrayed the Empire. What they've done, hiding the truth, manipulating species' secret mining operations, none of this serves our people. It only serves them. Gray stopped pacing. You sound like you've been thinking about this for some time. I have, Tarn admitted. I was assigned to the historical archives before joining your staff. I saw things, records that didn't match the official history. When I started asking questions, I was quickly reassigned. The door slid open, and Captain Miller entered with, Lieutenant Reed, we're heading to the Proxima system, Miller announced without preamble. According to your records, that's one of the locations of Project Harvest. Gray frowned. You're making a mistake. If there are mining operations there, they'll be heavily defended. We're counting on it, Miller replied. We need evidence of what the Empire has been doing. And what happens when you have this evidence? Gray asked. Do you plan to start a war with the entire Empire? Miller shook his head. We want justice, not war. If what Lieutenant Tarn says is true, then many in the Empire don't even know what the Council has been doing. We want the truth exposed, to our people and to yours. Gray was silent for a long moment. The Shadow Division ship will call for reinforcements. You'll be facing more than just one vessel soon. Which is why we need to move quickly, Reed interjected. Admiral, we could use your help. Your knowledge of Imperial protocols and defenses would be valuable. Gray looked surprised. You're asking me to help you against my own people? Against the Council, Miller corrected. Not against the Empire or its people. You said yourself, if what we've discovered is true, then you've been used as well. Before Gray could respond, the ship's communication system activated. Captain, incoming transmission from an unknown source. It's being broadcast on an old Imperial frequency. Miller frowned. Put it through. The screen on the wall lit up, showing a face that caused Gray to inhale sharply. It was an older man with dark skin and sharp, intelligent eyes. This is Marcus, Chief of Imperial Intelligence, the man said without introduction. I'm contacting the human vessel Dauntless. Captain Miller, I presume? Miller stepped forward. I'm Miller. How did you find this channel? Marcus smiled slightly. There's very little I don't find, Captain. I'm contacting you because we have a mutual problem. The Shadow Division has been dispatched to eliminate you and me. You? Gray stepped into view of the transmission. Marcus, what's happening? Admiral Gray, Marcus acknowledged. The Council didn't appreciate my recent inquiries into human history or Project Harvest. It seems I've become inconvenient. Where are you? Miller asked. On a small transport, currently hiding in an asteroid field in the Vega sector. I have files, complete records of Project Harvest, Council deliberations, and the true history of Earth's relationship with the galaxy. I'm willing to share them with you. Miller exchanged glances with Reed. Why would you help us? Because the Council has corrupted the Empire I swore to serve, Marcus replied simply. What they've done to humans, they've done to dozens of species. They've manipulated, exploited, and controlled, all while hiding behind the facade of benevolent leadership. It could be a trap, Reed whispered to Miller. Marcus heard her. It's not a trap, Lieutenant Reed. But you're wise to be cautious. I'm transmitting coordinates now. Meet me there in 10 hours. I'll provide the evidence you need. The transmission ended. Can we trust him? Miller asked Gray. The Admiral considered. Marcus has served the Empire for decades. He's known for his integrity, even among his enemies. If he says the Council has gone too far, I'm inclined to believe him. Miller nodded. Set course for the coordinates, but approach with caution. We'll gather the evidence from Proxima first, then meet with Marcus. The Dauntless altered course, accelerating toward the Proxima system. 6 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a small rocky planet orbiting a red dwarf star. Scan the surface, Miller ordered. Watson's hands moved over the controls. detecting massive mining operations on the far side of the planet. Energy signatures consistent with Imperial technology. There are 3 large vessels in orbit and a base on the surface. Reed studied her console. The planet shows signs of extreme strip mining. The environmental damage is catastrophic. The planet's core has been destabilized. Miller's expression hardened. Record everything. Full sensor. Sweep. As the Dauntless moved closer, alarms suddenly blared. "We've been spotted," Watson called out. "The Imperial ships are powering weapons." "Open a channel," Miller ordered. "Channel open," the communications officer replied. "Imperial vessels, this is Captain James Miller of the Earth Federation ship Dauntless. We are conducting an investigation into illegal mining operations in neutral space. Power down your weapons." The response was immediate. Energy beams lanced out from all 3 Imperial ships. "Evasive maneuvers," Miller commanded. "Return fire, target weapons only." The Dauntless rolled gracefully, avoiding the brunt of the attack. Its own weapons fired with precision, disabling 2 of the Imperial ships with surgical strikes. "The 3rd ship is retreating," Watson reported. "They're sending out a distress call." "Let them go," Miller said. "Continue recording. I want detailed scans of those mining operations." For 30 minutes, the Dauntless orbited the planet, documenting the extensive damage caused by Imperial mining. When they had gathered enough evidence, Miller ordered a course for Marcus's coordinates. "Sir," Reed said urgently, "long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships converging on our position. At least 6 vessels, including what appears to be the Shadow Division ship that was pursuing us." Miller turned to Gray. "It seems your people really don't want us sharing what we found." Gray's expression was grim. "The Shadow Division doesn't represent my people, Captain. They represent the Council's fears. And right now, their greatest fear is the truth you carry." "Set course for Marcus's coordinates. Maximum speed," Miller ordered. "We need to get that additional evidence before they catch up to us." As the Dauntless accelerated away from Proxima, the Imperial pursuit fleet grew from 6 ships to 11. The hunt was intensifying, and the stakes were becoming clear, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. The Dauntless emerged from faster-than-light travel at the coordinates Marcus had provided. Before them floated an ancient space station, its design unlike anything in current Imperial architecture. The massive structure was shaped like a wheel, with spokes extending from a central hub, its surface covered with faded symbols. "What is this place?" Miller asked, staring at the viewscreen. Admiral Gray stepped forward, his eyes wide with recognition. "The archives of Helios. It was believed, destroyed centuries ago." Lieutenant Tarn moved beside him. "The oldest repository of galactic knowledge," he whispered. "The birthplace of the First Galactic Alliance." A small transport ship approached from behind the station, matching the signal Marcus had used earlier. "Captain," Watson called from Tactical, "our long-range sensors show the Imperial pursuit fleet is less than 2 hours behind us. 11 ships, including 3 battlecruisers and the Shadow Division vessel." Miller nodded grimly. "Let's not waste time then. Bring Marcus aboard immediately." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the Dauntless's conference room. In person, the Imperial intelligence chief looked tired but determined, his dark eyes alert despite his obvious exhaustion. "Thank you for coming, Captain," Marcus said, placing a small data crystal on the table. "This contains everything. The complete records of Project Harvest, council meeting transcripts, and the sealed archives about Earth's true history." Miller picked up the crystal. "Why this station? Why meet here?" Marcus smiled. "Because the archives of Helios hold something even more valuable than my records. It contains the complete, unaltered history of the galaxy, including humanity's role as the Shield of Dawn." "The station looks abandoned," Reed observed. "On the surface, yes," Marcus agreed. "The Council ordered it decommissioned 500 years ago, after the Sundering, but they couldn't destroy it. The knowledge was too valuable, so they hid it and placed it under the protection of automated systems. Systems that you can bypass," Miller guessed. Marcus nodded. As Chief of Intelligence, I have access codes even the Council has forgotten. Suddenly, the ship's alarm sounded. Captain, Watson's voice came over the comm. The Imperial fleet has arrived. They've somehow tracked us and accelerated their approach. They're launching fighters. Miller turned to Marcus. Whatever you need to do on that station, do it fast. We'll hold them off as long as we can. As Marcus and a small team from the Dauntless headed to the ancient station in a shuttle, Miller returned to the bridge. The tactical display showed the Imperial fleet spreading out to surround them. "Sir!" the communications officer called. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. The Federation fleet has arrived." Miller's eyes widened as the display updated to show 20 human warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel behind the Imperial fleet. The Earth vessels were smaller than the Imperial battlecruisers but moved with incredible speed and precision. "Open a channel to the Federation flagship," Miller ordered. The screen changed to show Admiral Jackson, commander of Earth's defense forces. "Captain Miller, your message was received. The Federation Council has reviewed your evidence and authorized decisive action." "Glad to see you, Admiral," Miller replied. "But we need to protect that station. It contains proof of everything we've discovered, and more." "Understood. We'll engage the Imperial fleet and keep them busy." The space around the ancient station erupted in battle. Human ships darted between the larger Imperial vessels, their advanced weapons targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision, disabling rather than destroying. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Admiral Gray watched the battle with a mixture of awe and concern. "Your people fight differently than I expected," he said to Miller. "You could destroy those ships, but you're only disabling them." Miller nodded. "We don't want a war, Admiral. We want justice." "Captain," Reed called out. "The Shadow Division vessel is breaking through. It's heading straight for the station." Miller's jaw tightened. "Intercept course, maximum speed." The Dauntless surged forward, putting itself between the black Imperial ship and the ancient station. The shadow vessel fired, its weapons more powerful than anything they'd faced before. The Dauntless shuddered under the impact. "Shields at 40%, Watson reported. "One more hit like that and we're in trouble." "Return fire," Miller ordered. "Target their weapons array." The Dauntless fired, but the shadow ship rolled away, evading most of the blast. It continued its approach to the station, firing again. This time, the hit struck the Dauntless's weakened shields directly. Systems sparked across the bridge as the ship rocked violently. "Shields failing!" Watson shouted. "Weapons offline!" Miller gripped his chair as the shadow vessel moved past them toward the station, but before it could fire again, a brilliant beam of energy struck it from above. The black ship spun as one of its engines exploded. "What was that?" Miller demanded. "Sir," the tactical officer replied in surprise. "It's Admiral Gray's flagship. The weapons we disabled earlier, they've brought them back online." On the screen, the Imperial flagship that had been part of the initial blockade moved between the Dauntless and the shadow vessel. Admiral Gray looked at Miller. "It seems my crew found your disabling measures temporary," he said with the ghost of a smile. "Sometimes, Captain, even empires can learn." Inside the ancient station, Marcus and Reed worked frantically at the central console. The massive database came to life, holographic displays filling the chamber with images of a forgotten era. "There," Marcus said, pointing to a sequence of symbols. "The transmission protocols. If we can broadcast this to both Earth and the Imperial homeworld simultaneously." Reed's fingers moved across the controls. "Ready. But this station's communication array isn't powerful enough to reach all Imperial worlds," Marcus smiled. "It doesn't need to be." He tapped his communicator. "All Imperial vessels, this is Chief Intelligence Officer Marcus. Authorization code Omega-7 Helios. Emergency override of all communication channels." Throughout the Imperial, fleet communication systems automatically activated, ready to relay whatever message Marcus was about to send. "Now, Lieutenant," he said to Reed, "start the transmission." The ancient station hummed with power as it began broadcasting. On every Imperial ship and on Earth, screens displayed the truth that had been hidden for centuries. The images showed humans standing alongside other species as guardians of peace. It showed the corruption that had infected the early council, leading to the conflict known as the Sundering. It revealed how the Council had deliberately isolated Earth, erasing humanity's memory of its place among the stars. And finally, it showed Project Harvest, the systematic exploitation of resources from dozens of worlds, including the illegal mining in human space that had caused so much damage. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Miller watched as the Imperial fleet ceased fire, their crews undoubtedly seeing the same transmission. The Shadow Division vessel tried to escape but was surrounded by both human and Imperial ships. "It's over," Gray said quietly. "The Council can't hide this anymore." Miller nodded. "No, they can't. But what happens now?" Gray looked at the human captain thoughtfully. "Now, Captain Miller, we rebuild. Not as Empire and Earth, but as what we were always meant to be. Equals among the stars." As the fighting stopped and the truth spread across the galaxy, the Dauntless floated beside the ancient station, a human warship that had come seeking answers and instead found the beginning of a new era. In the observation lounge, Miller stood, looking out at the stars, Reed beside him. "The Shield of Dawn," Reed said softly. "That's what they called us." Miller nodded. "And perhaps that's what we'll be again. Not through fear or power, but through truth and justice." Beyond the viewport, human and Imperial ships began to gather around the ancient station, not as enemies, but as the first members of a new galactic community, one built on the truth that had finally been revealed. The Empire had panicked at the sight of a single human warship. Now they would learn to work alongside a humanity that had awakened to its true heritage among the stars.